In this video, we're going to start editing in Premiere Pro. So I'm going to be talking about the buttons as well as the keyboard shortcuts, because the keyboard shortcuts are pretty key to being efficient in Premiere Pro. Last time we talked about the workflow, we talked about importing videos, which again, you're really just sort of pointing Premiere at them. You're not truly importing them, you're not copying them, you're not moving the files. So you need to keep those files on your computer organized. Now we're actually going to start using Premiere for what it's meant for, which is assembling audiovisual material in a time-based manner. So in my project panel, we've got these files that we imported. Again, a quick reminder, find any blank spot, double click, and you'll get your import options. So I'm going to start with this what's your name file. I'm going to double click it right on the icon. Again, that icon telling me that the purple has video and that the green shows it has audio. And here's my clip. So the first thing you want to do, especially if this is footage that you were given and that you didn't shoot yourself, is that you want to watch all of it so you know what you have. So like any other design project, you got to know what you're doing and you got to know what you're working with. So I've already seen all this, so I'm going to kind of jump right in. So I'm going to start by playing this clip, which again is just previewed. So Premiere is kind of looking at it and it's reading it right off my computer hard drive. And I'm going to play it and listen to it to make sure I know exactly where I want to edit it. So the quick way to get started, like any other audio or video program, or almost any other program these days, is by pressing the space bar, which will start and stop your playhead moving along the timeline. So you can click this little button right here. I'm going to hit the space bar.
All right, Dollface, what gives with the Jersey Act?
So I could hear at the beginning, off camera, there was someone saying action or something. So I know I'm not going to want that. So I'm going to move my playhead back. And as soon as I hear that, I'm going to press the space bar so that my playhead is right after it. So for me, it's only 20 in. So if you're looking at these numbers, this is your exact playhead position. So on this end, these represent hours. These are minutes. These are seconds. And these are frames. You can see down here in our project panel that these videos are all about 30 frames per second. So it's sort of like 30 still images a second to our human eyes and brains look like video. So this is less than 1 second in. It's only 20 frames in. So I know I'm going to want to start my selection here because I'm going to want this first bit or so to be the first clip in my new video. So to start a selection, I need to set an in point. And that's what these markers are here. We have an in and an out. So if I click this in marker, the keyboard shortcut is I. We'll use that later. You can see that I've started a selection. So it assumes we want it all the way to the end because we haven't set an out point yet. We'll get there. So I'm going to go ahead and press my space bar again and let this play up until a certain point when I know I'm going to want my out point.
All right, Dollface, what gives with the Jersey accent?
Well, it's about my sister. It's about my twin sister.
Okay, sister, what's your name?
So this is why I want to end my selection because I'm going to switch to a clip from one of these other sources. So if this is where I want my selection to end, it needs an out point. So I'm going to click this button. In the future, I'm going to hit the O key on my keyboard. So that's I for in and O for out. They're conveniently next to each other. So here I have my selection. So like any of the Adobe programs, the key to starting out with great material is to make sure you're making an accurate selection in the best way possible. So I've got my selection here. Now I need to start assembling on my timeline. If you remember from the workflow video, this is our list of files. We preview and make selections here. We assemble them in a main timeline here, which is previewed here. So all of these videos are the same size. I can see that if I scroll over. The project panel is full of various bits of information. So I know that all the resolution is the same. I know the frame rate is the same. So I can just drag and drop and it will make a sequence to exactly the size of this original video. So my one caveat is this is make sure you know what you're working with. These files are pretty small. They aren't HD or anything. They're definitely not anywhere near 4K. But they're small because they're easy to copy. They're easy to move around for my students. So you never want to start a sequence with a still image because it's going to be enormous. You definitely need to know what the size of your sequence is going to be and just pick one thing to start it with. You can even drag something over here and then delete it as soon as the timeline is created. You can, of course, go to File, New, and create a sequence. However, my intended audience for this video is people who are new to Premiere, and this window, I'll show it to you quick, gives you a dizzying array of options and a ton of resolutions and frame rates and output sources. So we're just gonna take a shortcut. So again, all these videos are the same. I know any one will be fine, so I'm just gonna drag down from my source panel into my timeline. And now I've got a sequence. So here we can see this clip on our timeline here. We've got our 3 visual or video tracks. They work just like layers. And then we've got 3 for audio. So we can definitely have more tracks and we will certainly get to that. But these will do us just fine for now. So if I look over my project panel, now I have this little icon here, and it's called What's Your Name? So it made a sequence. This is the icon for sequence, and I just named it based on the name of the clip that I dragged in here. So I'm going to click on that and name it something bland like Practice Sequence 1. And then I'll hit return to rename that, and we can see the tab on the timeline panel is also renamed. So here, if I play this, I can see it's the exact clip that I wanted. So I'm going to press the space bar. And the space bar, again, make sure that you have clicked in your timeline. The space bar works the same as it does in the source panel.
All right, Dollface. What gives with the Jersey accent?
Save a little time, skip to the end.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we had. So move your timeline to the end. And we're going to tack on another clip to build out this video we're making from a different source. So I'm going to double click the icon next to Writers 2. And I've got some old in and out points from something else I was doing. And I don't have to worry about those because as soon as I set a new in point and out point, those others will be replaced. If you would rather start from scratch, you can press Option X and it will erase those. That's Option X, not Command. And that will just clear in and out points. So when I play this from the beginning, I can also hear some off-screen direction that lasts for kind of a few seconds. So I'm going to press the space bar and I'm going to let it play past that.
Same thing, and then at one point says Dixie, like the cut.
Yeah, okay, good.
Okay, okay, ready? And
So I'm just using the space bar to get the exact point where I want to start. Again, I've already watched this clip several times, so I kind of know what I want. So I think right here I'm going to start where he's just put the cup down a bit from his face. So I'm going to press the I key, make my in point, press the space bar again.
we need a good name. What's her name? Betty. Something noir. Dixie.
So right after he makes that noise and again kind of pulls the cup down a bit, I'm going to press O and I've got a new out point. So I could drag and drop this. However, since my playhead is exactly at the end, and this is very important, make sure your playhead is at the end, I can introduce some new shortcuts. So we've got Insert and Overwrite, which are these 2 tiny buttons here. So an overwrite will do what it says. If my playhead was here and I told it to overwrite, it will erase everything on my selected tracks and replace it with my new selection. So I don't want that for sure. I'm going to press Command Z. Typically, I have used Overwrite the most if I open up an audio file and make a selection like a sound effect or a part of a soundtrack. I would want Overwrite on a fresh audio track, so I would select a new audio track and insert that soundtrack here. Usually, probably I would end up cutting or fading out the audio that was attached to the video. We'll get into that more. That's just been my experience that I use Overwrite mostly with only audio and not with an audio-visual pair. So I'm going to move my playhead to the end. I'm going to make sure it's exactly at the end by holding my Shift key, and you'll kind of feel that playhead snap to the end. So I'm going to use the Insert option. So Insert, if this were in between two clips, it would insert my new clip here and push everything else downstream. So Overwrite will just cover it up. Insert will push everything else downstream after it inserts. So in this case, because we have nothing downstream, I could use Insert or Overwrite. However, I'd really encourage you to start using Insert, as it's going to end up saving you time as you get used to the flow of editing in Premiere. So I've got my playhead exactly at the end. I'll hit comma. And now I've got my two clips here. So I'm going to watch the transition. Move my playhead, press spacebar.
We need a good name. What's her name? Betty. Something noir. Dixie.
All right, so we're at the end of that, and then we're going to go back to our What's Your Name clip. So I'm going to go back to my project panel, double click What's Your Name, and you can see that my in and out points are still there from last time. So this time, rather than clearing them or ignoring them, I'm going to use them. So if I have my playhead exactly on that old out point, and I can use my go to in and go to out points. So I'll click go to out, and it'll snap my playhead right there. I can press I, and that old out point becomes my new in point. So now I'm going to press the spacebar and let this play until I want to cut again.
Dixie.
What'd you do that for?
I was wondering whether I'd like it.
Oh, this again. All right, Dixie, I'll play along. Who's the gorilla?